I mean, with Glenn Close, yeah, I mean, she's good and she kind of fits in well, and but I don't think she takes over the show as much as Forrest Whitaker does. And I say that in a positive way. I mean, he takes it over for the better. It's like, wow, what is going on here? This guy is a trip. Yeah, this is definitely something different, and we have not seen a character like this go up against the strike team before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we talked about last time how even when you have the big bads, the big nasty gangsters out in the world, we don't spend that much screen time with them because we only see them when the strike team actually is in the space with them. This is the first time we get an antagonist. I mean, he's not a gangster, but he is an antagonist for sure. And we get scenes of him operating on his own, sort of like independent of the strike team. And he's really, like I said, takes over the show. He's the protagonist of this season in a lot of ways. And the strike team is really like in reactive mode for pretty much the whole season. It's like everybody talks about Thanos in Infinity War.
Yes,
he's really the protagonist who's like pursuing things that whole time.
Mm-hmm. It's I mean, it's a similar role in the story, I guess, because he is sort of this sort of epic figure that seems, I don't know, almost supernatural in his tenacity and just his dogged pursuit of who I don't know, it would be calling them our heroes be not the way to put it. I mean, it's very conscious that, like, you know, okay, here's the good guy, quote unquote, who's actually going to deal with what we've seen these guys do for 4 years. He is the avenging angel, and it almost feels like he's
boy, are you going to hate him?
Oh yeah, that's just amazing. I mean, I think we've thrown around the word anti-villain a few times. There may not be a more pure version of that than Jon Kavanaugh on the wall. He's right. He's right about everything. He doesn't like float any ideas that the strike team didn't actually do. He's got this ability to pull out things that all happened that you might have forgotten about or excused at some point in the last 4 years. And he's like, no, that's illegal, crooked cop shit. And I'm going to get him for it. You know, like he's right about everything, oddly enough, for being a crazy psychopath that we don't like, really. He is the good guy, quote unquote. I mean, I don't know. By the end, it's kind of hard to tell anymore. But man,
yeah. But he's got that, and he's got Lem dead to rights from the start. That's something that he comes in, and he completely, the presence of Kavanaugh completely like revitalizes and cranks up this show to a whole new level. When the show was like never less than wild and crazy, even its most quiet, least forward driving moment, it was still pretty bug fucking sane. But Kavanaugh just pushes things that much further. The way he's like, he constantly is getting too close to everybody. He's like just always in their space.
Yeah, he's such a large man too. He's so imposing.
But he's shedding weight throughout the year.
The way that he just takes over the office at the barn. I mean, that's that's almost kind of like what he does in the show. It's like, yeah, I'm here now. You're gonna all have to kind of move away. I'm kind of running this whole thing now. That's just kind of how I feel his character is. It's just like, wow. There was really no character like that during the whole series run, and man, they got the perfect guy to play that part. And I mean, never has anyone creeped me out more offering gum to somebody.
It's a fresh pack, though, Chris. It's a fresh pack. Right. Come on. That's somehow worse.
And then in the fact
it's
that
somehow more creepy than when he actually is like putting his hands on Mackie's wife in the finale.
Wow. Oh my God. I'm so taken with that. Oh, we'll get to that. Okay. The places he goes, it's wow. Oh man, he's an asshole too. Like the way he just methodically just bears down on everyone, just takes them apart piece by piece, wears them down. I mean, you see that a lot in cop shows, including The Shield. We're just going to wear this guy down. Dutch and Claudette do a version of it every week, kind of. And but I feel
with
more
a softer
kind
glove.
Oh yeah, like he is good at it. He is. You really feel it. He is bearing down on these people, like Corinne. Poor fucking Corinne this season. I mean, I say
every season we say that.
Yeah. I mean, this does give the actress a lot more to do than she's ever has, and she really acquits herself working against Forrest Whitaker. I think mostly just because he is such a dominant force. He's just a hurricane, and all she can really do is kind of stand in the face of it. It's and it works. It works perfectly for the show, for Corinne, for Kavanaugh. I mean, his scenes with everybody are like the best scenes always. There's not a single Kavanaugh scene that's not just transfixing.
Well, well, having him from the jump lay into Lem, that's kind of the one character who, has kind of shown regret and has shown remorse over things that have happened, and who seems like that he could be a fairly decent guy in the right situation. Yeah. So bringing Kavanaugh in and just right away just twisting the knife into Lem, I think that's such a great combination. I mean, this is, as much as I loved Whitaker in this season, I think, Kenny Johnson really stepped up this season. And I mean, he's as major as anyone else in this season. And man, I just, you can't not feel awful for him through this whole season.
Oh, it's certainly Lem's best season. No question about that. Yeah.
Oh, and so effective to watch Lem be the one who's like caught in the vise from the beginning is because those earlier, if they're not calmer, let's call them more meandering seasons, right? Like,
yes.
They established him as a character who is like more than just a sacrificial lamb, right? Like he's the team's conscience.
Right.
He's the team's conscience. And I think that means it's inevitable in some way that he'll be the first one to pay for all their sins. But we're deep enough into the run, it feels like in some crucial way, like that is a character that was not just created expressly for the specific narrative purpose of taking this fall. And that makes it feel worse and more tragic.
Yeah. And it's all just that one moment in season 4 where he took the block of heroin, which is just standard operating procedure for,
it's like number 78 on the list of like Stripe Team dirt that they've done.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely not a moment when you're watching season 4 that you think is going to prove as weighty as it does in season 5. It just seems like, oh, well, whatever. He grabbed some heroin.
But it just shows how the house of cards that they have set up is such that you could pull on any string and then like, well, they can't let anybody get in trouble for that thing because then it makes it that they could get out of it by exposing the bigger thing, and that person could expose something even bigger, and it all tumbles down to the end of the world.
Yep. What a show! And Forrest Whitaker. I mean, like I mentioned this earlier, he came right off the set of Last King of Scotland.
Yeah.
To deliver this performance. Now, I don't know about you guys. I am not a big Forrest Whitaker proponent most of the time. I find him often to be mannered or off-putting, especially when he plays normal people. I think now, as he's a character actor, he is, a little bit more, I think people know what his strengths are. Yeah. But, man, this particular window of time, this particular moment between that and Last King of Scotland, what a magnetic performer. What an incredible, like he found his perfect groove, his perfect mode. Part of that mode appears to be just dominating everybody else on screen. But if you have the role where that is necessary and required, there is nobody better to do it than Forrest Whitaker. Every choice he makes is so interesting, so unusual. The pauses he takes are so unexpected. It's sort of that Christopher Walken thing, where just like, what the fuck is he doing? Why is it so fascinating? Yeah. It's so fucking powerful.
You identify that he has to, he does so much of just rolling in and dominating every scene. However, the way the Kavanaugh character works, he does just as much flailing as he does dominating, especially in the back half.
Dominating when he flails.
Yes. Like, yeah. Well, that scene where, later in the season where he's having the big scene with his wife, and then realizes that Vic and Lem are watching it. I mean, he's definitely not in control in that moment, but man, he's just as mesmerizing to watch. Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, that's the look on his face when he realizes what's going on is just absolutely priceless.
Yeah.
This is why he's a great example of something that I've thought of I think of it as the Quarles effect, named after the villain of season 3 of Justified.
Of course.
And because that's the other like best version or example I can think of this thing. It's really hard to do. It's also a phenomenal asset to a running TV show if you can pull it off. And that's where you have an antagonist, a villain, if you want to call Kavanaugh that, and they're really imposing, and then somehow they get scarier and more imposing as they take more and more losses.
Yeah.
Because in a long range show, you kind of you have to keep rerunning conflicts a lot and taking, the bad guys can't ever win because they'll just destroy the good guys if they win.
Yeah, it's the end of the show.
Yeah. So Justified season 3 does a phenomenal job of doing that in a different way, but especially for the Shield, this is the biggest problem that it creates for itself on a big picture level. I think is maintaining any credibility with the people who are on Mackey's tail from the police side of things, from the right side of the law, because that like the relentless pace and the gonzo sensibility that the show always has means that Mackey's like his corruption has to keep getting more and more grandiose, and the contortions that he uses to slither out of facing consequences just get more and more elaborate as time goes on. And episode by episode, that's fantastic stuff, and it's really entertaining. But in the big picture, it pushes anybody whose job it is to hold him to account into Wile E. Coyote territory. They just look more and more foolish and outmatched the more times that their grand plan to ensnare, this corrupt roadrunner just goes up in smoke.
Yeah, well, I mean, he does have his Wile E. Coyote moments this season. He plays the shit out of them. They are great, finding out that that Vic was listening to the conversation with his wife is a real Wile E. Coyote.
Well, also that whole undercover sting that they have set up, and
that's the most Roadrunner that it ever gets.
Yes, yeah, that's another great bit of Kavanaugh, just his eyes bulging out of his head, and just that's I mean, where it really does seem like Vic is just kind of he's getting away with it again, just like old Vic does, and so that's one of those moments where you think that's kind of how the season's going to play out, but kudos to the show for not going in that direction exactly.
No, that just like once he starts taking the L's, like I was saying, that just sort of like intensifies his mania and his determination to take this home. Which I feel like you could write a season with Vic behaving that way and it would work pretty well. But it's fascinating to do it with his antagonist. Like that could have been